Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome, welcome, welcome to anybody who's joining live. I am here today to talk about finding joyful and intuitive movement. So, this is something that I don't know if many of you know about what joyful or intuitive movement is. I'm going to get briefly talk about that, but I also want to focus on for today how to know if the ways that you're moving are not joyful and intuitive. So sometimes it's easier to kind of know what it doesn't look like than to kind of pinpoint what it does look like or what it does feel like, especially if it's a new concept. You can kind of pick out the red flags or that sort of thing on the front end, and then explore what feels good to you. So we're talking about this today because last week I talked about creating space and how our lives are going to just pretty much demand the status quo of whatever's been happening up until this point. The status quo typically remains unless we have a different response, unless we disrupt the cycle. And this could be good or bad, you know what I mean? Until something disrupts that pattern, it's probably going to continue. That's just basic cause and effect, human behavior, that sort of thing. So we talked about creating space and doing that intentionally so that you can make room for what you want to experience. Okay. And so I was thinking about that last week, and I still, that message was still, spot on with my intentions. But then I was thinking further about it, and I was just like, but it's hard to make space for something if you're not looking forward to, or if you don't see the benefit, or if it has nothing that returns on the investment. And so that's what I wanted to talk about, finding joyful and intuitive movement, because I think that looking forward to something about what you're about to do helps to create the space, right? It's like I either have to have a clear why and a clear heart motivation as to why I'm doing this, regardless of what it brings back to me, or I've got to find the joy and the natural draw towards this type of habit change. So I want to use movement as one of those. Again, this is a rinse and repeat, can apply to a lot of different things, but in the sense of movement, diet culture has really boxed us in to some really harmful ways of viewing exercise. Even the word exercise can be triggering. I remember I used to say exercise like it was nothing, and then now I kind of feel like, well, exercise kind of has leaves a bad taste in your mouth, or it has kind of like this negative connotation with it. And I know that there's nothing wrong with the word. I'm just noticing the conditioning around what exercise represents, right? And so when you hear exercise or you hear working out, sometimes it's like a shame response, especially if you haven't been doing it. You're like, oh God, I know, oh gosh, yes, I was supposed to, I missed it. There's all these negative things that feed into those words, right? And so I've transitioned the way I talk about exercise into movement. Movement and exercise are both words in the dictionary, okay? One has a negative connotation to it because of what society and diet culture has placed on it, and the other one's just kind of like free for now, okay? So we very well may be having this conversation around movement at some point, but movement is untouched, okay? Movement is untouched. So that's you'll hear me use that word in this conversation, and I do try to incorporate that, but I'm also trying to understand that exercise is not bad in and of itself. What people and society has placed on it is really what the issue is. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there and kind of just share that with you all. If anything that I say is triggering, we are going to talk about, kind of some topical points about what to do about that. But just realizing that my intent is for you to take care of your body, for you to feel good in doing that. And sometimes we need to unlearn what we've learned about things that now we are opposed to or hate or that sort of thing. It's time to unlearn some of that stuff and then relearn how you want to relate to it. Okay. So joyful and intuitive movement is different in the sense that working out and pushing past pain and all these other things that we're told about exercising really give us. And joyful and intuitive movement is really about listening to your body, okay? Not doing what's expected of you to do in a certain workout or when you're exercising, but doing what brings you joy and doing what feels intuitive. Okay, so sometimes you find this a lot in the creative ways of moving, like a yoga or Zumba dance, different things like that. Even swimming, I feel like, has more of like a freestyle. There's not like a rigid, I know there's obviously techniques and stuff like that, but you can also kind of freestyle those in a way that perhaps like squatting with the barbell on your back, there really is like a specific way you need to think about doing that in order to prevent harm. But there are some more creative, I guess, free flowing is the word, ways of moving that can feel more intuitive, and it's not bound by certain rules or certain techniques, and it's not very rigid, it's just free flowing. Go with where you feel comfortable. Hold yourself at a position, modify as you need to. Those are all things that are very intuitive, which is why even in the strength workouts that I teach and that I write up for people, I always give modifications for that intuitive piece. So if this modification or if this format that I'm using is not feeling good to your body, if it's causing you pain, and I'll go through some other cues of that, it's okay to modify. And I think that's something that's really missing from the fitness culture, diet culture, of what it means to get something right and you got to do it this way. And anytime I say burpees, people are like, oh God, they just have like a whole like triggered response around it. And I'm like, but there's also 10 modifications for it, and you can still hate it. I mean, you don't have to do it. That's your joy. But also there's some ways that you can begin to relate to these things in a different way that actually might be beneficial to you to do long term. It really just depends on what your personal goals are and where you see yourself going. So I want to give you guys some tips, some red flags, I guess you could say, for if your movement is not joyful, not intuitive, kind of what that would feel like. And I think, again, we're unlearning so that we can find some other things. And so I'll give some counters to that too. But first and foremost, it hurts in a way that is damaging. Okay. Now, I've done many a squat. I've done many a push-up. I've ran many a mile kind of ish down the road before, and it hurts. It's uncomfortable. If you don't normally do it, there's gonna be some adjustment, just like growth spurts, just like whatever else you may do that challenges you to get outside of your comfort zone. However, if it hurts to where you feel like you're doing damage by engaging in it, that's where I feel like the pain line is. Okay, so squatting up and down 10 times is going to have some level of discomfort, and it may hurt, burn, you know what I mean, that sort of thing from just having not done it. But if your back is hurting and you feel like you're damaging something, or if you feel like you're damaging your knees or damaging your ankles by doing a certain move, that would be a red flag that it's probably not intuitive and it's probably not bringing you joy. I don't know. I guess that's subjective. But that would be an indicator that you might want to find something else. Now, in this situation, what could you do? You could find a way to modify. Okay, so if we're looking at a squat, okay, so I could do a squat freestanding with the barbell on my back. That's probably the most extreme way to do it. You know what I mean? Or I could do a body weight squat and not require weight. Or I could use a chair and sit down on the chair, get my bearings, and then stand up. That's another way of doing a squat. Or I could use a stability ball and hold myself up against the wall and have some back support as I go down and I go up. Or I could just not go all the way down like I see my trainer doing. I can go to about 45 degrees. You see how you can kind of use that to intuitively figure out what your comfort level is that doesn't cause you pain. Okay, so I'm using the squat as an example, but really this applies to any type of movement. There is always a modification, and if there is not, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Move on. I mean, I can't even think of something that doesn't have a modification to it. But if there is, and it's causing you to feel like you're like feeling like there's damage being done to your body, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Move on to something else. Okay. So the next one I will say is a red flag is if you never find any benefit from it whatsoever. So you've been going to the same style of class for a long time and you're never happy there. You never look forward to it. You never feel better. You never see any progress. You never feel more, whatever your goals may be. You never have that experience. That's something that's probably not joyful, and it may or may not be intuitive. If you're listening to your body and it's still not benefiting your body, then something's off there as well. So I would say to it's not that it's not that you're going to always enjoy what you're doing. Okay, there's going to be days, there's days where I don't enjoy anything I got going on. Okay, not just like workout wise, but you know what I mean? There's going to be days. There's going to be days when this little dog right here gets on my last nerve. Okay, but more often than not, I do find a benefit of having my dog, and so it works out. And the same goes for your workouts. Okay, so you may have days where you're not looking forward to it. It's kind of like, you know what I mean, when you get there. But more oftentimes than not, you should at least feel like you're getting some sort of benefit from doing it. And if you don't, it's time to cut it. It's time to find something else. Third thing, if it's triggering you, okay, a lot of us have, I don't know if this is a term or not, but like fitness trauma, okay, where we've been through bad experiences, where even honestly, some people in their childhood, a form of discipline for them was to do physically challenging type stuff. Okay. And I won't go into the details of that, but you can kind of fill in the blanks of someone who's made to go do something as a punishment for a behavior. That immediately gives you a negative association with whatever that thing was. The closest I could talk about here is, in sports, we would have to run for punishment. So I never really got the whole let's go run for fun thing. I was just kind of like, that's what we do when we get in trouble. That's what I do when I get in trouble. I'm not in trouble, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something else. But I have learned over time, now mind you, that's been a good little while ago that happened, that's what it was used for. And over time, I have come to understand the benefits of running, and I do find myself running, doing sprints, that sort of thing. But it took some unlearning around that being like a punishment and a negative thing and just so daunting and like so exhausting that I couldn't do it. Well, now I can jog slower. I'm not on a time clock. I'm not around, I can make it my own. I can stop when I want to. Sometimes it's even the environment of, running on a track round and around and around versus going on a hike and being able to see different things and experience it in a different way. All of that can help with whatever is triggering you around a certain situation. But also, as with everything else, if it's triggering you to a point where it's now damaging you mentally and emotionally, or you're getting no benefit out of it, then I would say it's time to find something else. Okay? The last thing I will say is really a mental one. And so there's no workout that is forcing you to do it, right? Okay? So when we feel forced and obligated, usually that's a mental, emotional, psychological, social type of influence. Okay, so the dumbbell is over there, or the Zumba class is right there, or the yoga's right there, and they are not talking to me and telling me I have to do them. Usually that's an internal thing that we're doing to ourselves, or that's being influenced by something else that we've either been through or been around. Okay, so if you feel like you have to do a certain type of exercise, that is not a joyful or an intuitive thing. Okay, you have options. You may not want to do the same type of workout every day, and that's okay. But you have options for finding something that does benefit you, that doesn't cause pain. And so if you're feeling obligated to do a specific type of exercise, that would be a sign that it's not joyful, that it's not intuitive. And also, if you have guilt from not doing a type of workout that you thought you should have done, that's probably also an indicator that your relationship with that type of working out it could use some improvement. Okay, so I want to go over those 4. If it hurts in a way that feels damaging to you, these are red flags for non-intuitive, non-joyful movement, if it hurts in a way that feels damaging, if you never find any benefit from doing it, if it's triggering you, the cue is to learn why and find some other ways to work through it or find something else. And then if you have to do it and it feels punishing, if it feels punishing to do it, if you feel guilty from not doing it, then those are my 4 red flags to start with. And so if you have found something that doesn't bring up those different things for you, that feels good to your body, that feels like you can do it and not do it and not have a whole lot of emotional turmoil over that, that is benefiting you and isn't triggering you, then you found some joyful movement. And now it's time to go back to what we were talking about, create the space to be able to engage in that. Okay? So that is my talk for today.